Claude Sonnet 3.5 was released, and Claude Opus 3.5 were released. This enabled the new wave of AI prototyping tools. Tools like Lovable, Bolt, V0, Base 44, and also these hybrid vibe coding IDE tools like Windsurf, Cursor, Replit, Claude Code. So this ecosystem has completely blown up. Lovable released 6 months ago, 80 million ARR. Bolt image is 1,000 words. A prototype is 10,000 words. It does the entire work. And so it is becoming a really good communication tool, a really good solution exploration tool, and a really good work product for PMs to develop to get much closer to the bare metal. Here, you don't need to learn advanced neural network training, but you should understand the key steps that are involved in that training.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another amazing video. And today we're going to explore how product managers can build smarter, faster, and with impact. Today we are joined by Aakash Gupta, one of the most trusted voices in product management. And he's a seasoned product leader, writer, and educator who has helped many product professionals grow in their career. Great to have you here.
Akel, thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. So, folks, we challenged Akash if he can build and test an AI MVP probably in just 1 hour, and that too with no code as a product manager. And guess what? Like he accepted. So we'll also kind of do an exercise or a hands-on session with him, wherein we can pick a problem statement and we'll go about building it from scratch. But before we start building, I do have a couple of questions for you from the audience, Akash. Should we take that?
Let's do it.
Awesome. So, Akash, product management as a discipline has evolved so much in the last decades, right? And with AI and no-code tools becoming mainstream, how do you see the very definition of PM's role changing?
Yeah, I think that the PM role is undergoing the most change I have seen over my 16 plus years in product management. Having started product management in 2008, looking at what we have now in 2025, it has completely changed from even 2024. And so there are very few other times I can look and say, hey, did something happen so big that like the whole role changed in just a year? And what changed, right? Well, of course, AI, but specifically within AI, not ChatGPT, because that's been out for 2+ years, not these LLM models. No, it's actually once Claude Sonnet 3.5 was released and Claude Opus 3.5 were released, this enabled the new wave of AI prototyping tools. Tools like Lovable, Bolt, V0, Base 44, and also these hybrid vibe coding IDE tools like Windsurf, Cursor, Replit, Claude Code. So this ecosystem has completely blown up. Lovable released 6 months ago, 80 million ARR. Bolt released 5 months ago, 50 million ARR. Replit, for 10 years, they hit 10 million ARR. Then in the last year, they hit 100 million ARR. So these tools are blowing up. And what's really happening is that now with just a prompt, as you guys will see in a second, you can create a fully functional front-end prototype, and you can add in backend over time and layer that backend in. And so product managers are not stuck in the world of documents. Now, before when I was an ICPM back in 2008, my job was primarily getting to know my users, analyzing business data, working with executives and stakeholders to create documents, right? I would create a PRD. I would create a product strategy. I would create a feature results write-up. These were basically the 3 most important things I created. I would maintain a roadmap. Now, PMs can get much closer to the bare metal of product, and the lines between what is PM and what is design and what is PM and what is engineering are blurring more than ever. Because in the best product companies these days, PMs are prompting tools like Lovable to create the first version of a prototype, to then go out and test that prototype with users, to iterate on that prototype, maybe iterate on several divergent solutions to a given problem, and come back with a fairly strong prototype that they then bring to the team. No PRD needed, nothing. And whereas a PRD would generate 1,000 questions, oh, what about this edge case? What about that? The prototype forces you to think about those edge cases as you're using the prototype itself. So I say, an image is 1,000 words, a prototype is 10,000 words. It does the entire work. And so it is becoming a really good communication tool, a really good solution exploration tool, and a really good work product for PMs to develop to get much closer to the bare metal. And that I think has been one of the biggest changes in product management we have seen.
Awesome. That is quite an insight, Akash. In fact, just to take your quote ahead, so we can also say that probably a prototype is worth 100 meetings, or then probably, yeah, 100 would be a good way to put it. Yeah. Yeah, all right. So traditionally, Akash, like PMs have worked through spec sprints and engineering bandwidth to bring ideas to life, right? But AI in the mix, how does it basically change the way PMs approach building and shipping products? Some of it you've answered, but do you think the PMing, the way it is evolving, is there any specific aspects of this changed ecosystem PMs have to keep in mind as they plan for, let's say, upskilling for next 3 years?
So the first thing is that PMs can deploy very simple prompt-based experimentation on their own. Back in the day, one of the most effective changes I ever made was called the ghost text in the search bar. So I would always A/B test what's written there. You know, uh, Instead of just saying like search for a term, what if you say, what's going on? Or I worked for a clothing company called ThreadUp, which went public. And one of the big things we did there was we said like, what's your favorite brand? It turns out that asking people what their brand favorite was the right search for them to execute. And so that massively increased conversion rates to purchase from visitors. So in the past, what I'd have to do is I'd have to go align everybody, come up with, oh, maybe these are some ghost texts that we could create. Then I would have to beg my copywriter to okay it. Then I would have to beg my engineers to add it into the sprint, and then they would execute it. And then I'd have to beg my analysts to analyze the results. Now,
Yeah.
as long as I get okay from everybody with just a little prompt, I can launch that change and I can have AI help me analyze the results and even graduate the correct experiment using a multi-armed bandit automatically and just share out with everybody, hey, we tested out 4 new ghost text and this one won and it led to this amount and that's going to drive $10 million in revenue next year. Boom. You just paid 10x, 20x, 30x, whatever, depending on how much you're being paid, your salary. Amazing, right? And
Yeah.
so PMs can launch very simple experiments on their own. When it comes to building bigger features, you still need design and engineering. But what a PM can do is they can build version 0. As I described before, they can go out and do user testing on an early version before design even gets their hands on it so that design isn't just working with a napkin sketch, they're working with a pre-validated idea.
Yeah.
Or, a lot of people, if they're at a bigger company, they might have a user research team. Well, the PM is now taking on some of that user research responsibility and able to execute some of that user research stuff themselves. So in the past, I remember when I was working at a firm, I had to beg my user researchers, please do some prototype testing on this. It was like you had to try to fight for resources. I used to, when I was a VP of product, I used to always say, hey, I want, 0.25 of a user researcher for each of my product teams. Now that ratio is even less. They probably need like 0.1. They just need the user researcher for the really deep problem exploration and the expertise in talking to users. But otherwise, the solution exploration, PMs can do a lot of that on their own. And so what's really happened is that PMs can come to their designers and engineers with much better ideas of big features, and small features they can execute on their own.
In fact, just to add to that, Akash, since we also keep on upskilling industry product leaders in advanced AI, there was a person. His role is he's a group product manager in one of the I would say quite growing company in gaming. I'm not sure to take the name of it, but yeah. So what they've done basically, they have built a testing game, and they were able to deploy to 10,000 users in just a week's time, and that too without the help of engineers or designers. And there's a power generative AI is giving to product leaders now, because if you would had to do the same thing with engineers, that would have taken probably what, a month, 2 months of fighting and all
A
those IT.
year, two. Yeah.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, so that's with the power. It gives product managers, right, get the the version zero tested, and then get that confident, and then get it scaled up. That's a superb insight. Thanks for sharing it. So Akash, like I get like one question quite a lot. I have been interacting with product managers, senior PMs, group PMs. One thing that they are really confused about, how much of AI they should know. Basis my understanding, there are a lot of questions comes in. Okay, I already know these X number of tools. Is it good enough, right? I already know AI, right? So what is your take on how much, how much of the AI they should know? Because as I feel it, probably, if you talk about 3 years back, every product leader used to say that you should know tech to be a better product manager, so that you can coordinate well and ensure what's happening, back of the doors, right? But with AI coming in, what is your take in terms of how much PM should know about AI?
The demands on how technical PMs should be have never been higher. And I think that those PMs who have a software engineering background, those PMs who are without a software engineering background, but are willing to go and experiment with Cursor and experiment with Claude Code and experiment with Windsurf and look and learn how to read that code. JavaScript and Python are very, very easy to read and learn what are the patterns here. You don't need to learn advanced neural network training, but you should understand the key steps that are involved in that training. You don't need to necessarily be able to execute what a $20 million training run is like, but you should go ahead and be able to execute in Cursor a $20 training run, just so that you can see all of the steps involved in building an LLM. And if you're nervous about that, there's so many good content creators. Two of my favorites, Avi Chawla and Andre Karpathy. You go take a look at some of their resources. They'll show you step by step how to create, for instance, a GPT-2. And I think that PMs should have that knowledge. On top of that, I think that PMs should be using one new tool a week. Every week nowadays, there's a new tool coming out. What's the latest one? Claude Code. What's the next one? I don't know, but it'll probably be, Chat GPT's version of a Claude Code competitor. And then after that, what's next? I don't know. Maybe you need to try VO3, or maybe you need to try Kimi 2. There's always new tools coming out. And this landscape is changing faster than ever. So just because you've used ChatGPT and you've used Claude, have you used Grok? You need to keep trying the new ones. If you've used Grok 3, have you used Grok 4? So, all the time you want to be trying to learn what are the latest tools. Today, we're going to do a demo later on with Lovable. If you use Lovable, have you used Base 44? There's all these new tools out there, and what is the best tool changes very fast. So don't assume that you have the best tool, and what is the best model changes every week. Sometimes Chat GPT o3 is the best. Then, they release Gemini 2.5 Pro. Oh, that's all of a sudden the best. Then they release Grok 4. Oh, all of a sudden that's the best. That's what's happened over the last month. And so you need to stay very much on top of models and tools. And then finally, AI features. So we talked about building AI, we talked about using AI tools, and then AI features. You need to keep looking at all the products that you're using out there. Oh, Amplitude released an AI agent. Well, how good is that AI agent? Let me go use that AI agent. Why did they release an AI agent? Oh, Product Board went ahead and released an AI agent. Okay, what is the point of this? Okay, how did this help? Oh, Replit released it. In your daily tools, Observe what AI features they're launching. Go look at the pricing and packaging for them. Think yourself about, if I were the product manager, how would I do this better? I think those three areas every product manager has to do, whether you are an AI PM or not. Even if you're an internal tools PM, or you're a privacy PM, or you're a platform PM, or you're a growth PM, all those types of PMs, I've talked to versions of them who use LLMs. One of the funniest is experimentation PMs, okay? You'd think, oh, they don't need to learn these LLMs and stuff. I was just talking to an experimentation PM at EA, okay? The gaming company. And what he realized is that the different gaming studios and gaming teams all had different ways of writing their PRDs and their hypothesis. And so he had a 40% fill rate of the hypothesis section of his experimentation platform when people would submit an experiment. He felt, this should be more like 100%. Like when you have an experiment, you should have a hypothesis that's clearly defined in terms of what metric is going to move how much. And so what he did is he created an API connection in his experimentation platform that would automatically fetch the person's PRD, and it would pre-fill the hypothesis for them based on their PRD. And all of a sudden, he was able to increase that hypothesis fill rate from 45% to 90%. He's able to double the rate of people including the hypothesis because they would see what hypothesis is in there. I think something like 50% of the time they would edit it, 50% of the time the AI would just have it right. But that's an example where he built an AI feature into an internal tool. And so any PM out there should be doing all three of these activities.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to put it. And thanks, Akash, for sharing insights. In fact, as probably we have to compare it with traditional way of product management. We are like working very closely with the engineers now. With the way generative AI has come in, we believe that it's here to stay, right? And PMs would also be exposed to a lot with probably data scientists, right? And when you're working with those specific niche roles, it's good that you understand what goes behind launching an AI product. So thanks Akash. I just have a final question to you before we move into building something real. So when you're building a product using AI, I have very kind of straightforward question, like how should a product manager balance speed with quality? What matters most at that stage, as you mentioned, like building a V0 version for your team or even for users probably for usability testing and all. So yeah, over to you.
The bar for quality has never been higher because speed is now available to everybody.
Yeah.
And so just like in the content world where we're seeing a bunch of AI slop out there, how many ChatGPT LinkedIn posts do you see these days? It's just like I'm just eye rolling all the time when I'm looking at my feed. I'm like, yep, use ChatGPT to write this. Oh, yep, he put this into Magic Post. It's so obvious. So you don't want to be that. You want to have the craftful, quality, tasteful solution. And so if you look at what I emphasized here, I didn't emphasize releasing a million features. I actually emphasized doing a million user tests. So what you release is incredibly high quality. The final product that you put in front of people is incredibly simple. It's not bloated with every single feature out there and becomes just like every other SaaS tool over time. It's a very pointed feature. Why is Lovable beating Bolt, beating Replit right now? How did it reach 80 million in 6 months? It's an incredibly simple product. We're about to use Lovable and we'll see, but they have kept the focus on the main thing, and the main thing must be the main thing. And so it's much better to actually remove stuff and keep that quality bar high. If you look at, Linear, they just raised a $1.25 billion valuation, right? And they're profitable. These companies, they're growing incredibly fast, maintaining profits by staying focused on quality. Having even one bug out there, it should be really hurting you. In the world of AI, your developers, they should be able to solve that bug pretty fast. And so it's really on you to find those bugs. Every bug is critical. Quality matters more than ever.
Awesome. In fact, thanks for sharing your insights, Akash. I think let's get into building. It was a real and awesome discussion, and yeah. So Akash, we were like before, like kind of getting into building, I was just having a problem statement in mind, and that's specific to health conscious users. Do you think we should build something around that segment, or do you have any specific problem statement in mind?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's walk through step by step. So I'm going to share my screen.
Oh
And
yeah.
what we're going to do is we are going to see what the steps a user should take in order to really build a strong MVP. So I think about this in terms of I'm going to go ahead and create like my little framework here.
Mhm.
So I have like my own personal framework that I like to think about. So what is this framework? User, problem, solution. That's the normal product management workflow. And then we're going to build a PRD. We're going to do some parallel prototyping. And what we want to do, what is this next P, right? So if you think about it, everybody is oh, everybody is creating these PRDs, but we actually need to create a really good prompt in there. And we need to add that in as a step. And then finally, we can work on the back end, right? So this is kind of the overall framework we want to pursue. So you said user, right? So you said like it's a health conscious person, right? So let's go ahead and just clean up our document a little bit, make it really easy to follow, okay? So user. So it's a health conscious person. So what else do we want to think about, right? If somebody's using a health app, they probably have tried some health apps, most likely, right?
Right.
Didn't like them. If we think about this user, probably, either they're concerned about their looks, maybe they want to be skinnier, maybe they want to have tighter skin, maybe they want to um, maybe they want to look more youthful, right?
Yeah.
Or they may have some health concerns. Maybe they want to live longer, right? Or maybe they have diabetes or some other chronic condition or a family history, or they really want to treat their body like a temple, right? And really what they put into their body, they want it to be amazing, right? So these are some ideas that we have, right, about the user. So really like the job to be done for this type of an app is going to be, you know, customizing to me, giving me solutions for me, fitting my lifestyle, whether I eat out or whether I cook. So this is like a very quick, we could do a longer version, but you challenged me to do a quick version, right? So that's the first step, right? Then we move into the problem. So what are some of the problems that this user is going to be facing, right? So if we think about this user, well, I guess like one of the first problems is that a lot of apps, you have to like input so much stuff, right? So like just jumping ahead to a potential solution, like a potential solution is like some sort of automated, let's create like a little, maybe like a little table here. Some sort of automated, maybe some pictures, maybe some hook into your fridge API or DoorDash API. So those are some ideas. Maybe like hook into your Instagram if you post a lot of pictures of your food, right? So those are some ideas, right? People have so much input that they want to deal with. What other problems? Another problem that people will face is being customized to you. Like some people eat out a lot, other people cook a lot. What do you
Probably.
personally do?
Yeah, probably personalized recommendations. tailor to their needs.
Yep. People have totally different dietary preferences.
Yeah.
Probably a lot of Indians here like Indian spicy food versus, maybe some of the Americans here, they like a lot of variety of different cuisines that is not very spicy. So if we start to look at these, we say, okay, what are some other big problems here that these people might face? We're talking about a health conscious or, it may not conform to their dietary guidelines, um, potentially from their doctor. So we've come up with like several problems. Maybe we number these. And now let's, start to brainstorm some creative solutions for these, right?
Yeah.
So basically, like, we could have different diet plans, or we could use AI to power, specific plans for people. Then we want like, dietary preferences, let's see here. I guess this one is actually a better solution for 3. And here it's like we could have cooking instructions. We could also have restaurant recommendations and what to order at restaurants, right?
Makes sense. Yeah.
Here's also like probably like some component of like cost here, like getting access to that data, because people have vastly different amounts of money they spend on food. So we're starting to slowly develop like the high level intuition about what our product should be, dietary guidelines, right? So we should be able to, pull those in, right? So now we can get started. We've done the initial product work, user problem solution. Now let's get into our PRD, right? So what's our PRD going to be here? So for this PRD, I'm thinking about like, what is the core user? We're going to do like, let's focus in on like the health conscious person without a chronic disease who
Who wants to-
cooks a lot,
Yeah.
right? So maybe like we'll focus in on this user for now,
Yeah. Someone who
because we
wants
don't
to.
want to build for everybody and everything. You were saying?
Yeah, I was saying like someone who wants to pursue healthy lifestyle.
Yep. Yep. Focused on a healthy lifestyle, right? And I think what we want to think about is like, the core problem we're going to solve for them, like you know, making it automated in terms of input, having customized cooking instructions and meal plans, or yeah, having customized instructions. We'll get into the solution in a second. And aligning to their preferences and guidelines, right? And then, like the solution we're thinking about is probably like, an app where you take pictures of your food. It automatically estimates, what sort of macros, and an app that intakes your your dietary preferences and guidelines, and then suggests really wonderful recipes and shopping lists, right? This is like the high level, and the goal here is, to create something that's easy to see how you're doing versus your goals, and also give you recommendations that will help you meet your goals, right?
Yeah, makes sense.
So we've created our basic simple PRD. So now we need to go into a prompt. So what I'll do is I'll take this in here and you'll go to Claude, right? And you'll say, hey, act as an expert prompt writer for Lovable. Bolt Replit. I'm going to turn off my share screen really quick, and I'm going to log into Bolt.
All right.
And let's see if I'm logged in. Yep, looks like I'm logged in. Let's do like Lovable, Bolt. Let's do like V0 also. Okay. So let me sign into all of these. Alrighty. All right, I'm going to turn my share screen back on now that I'm logged in. All right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go over to Claude. I like Claude for my prompt writing, right? So act as an excerpt prompt writer for Lovable Bolt V0. Create a single prompt that I'll send to all three. Here's my high level PRD. I want you to create very simple instructions, not overly convoluted, of what should be on each screen of the app, how the user flows go. Don't overcomplicate right now. This is a super simple MVP. We just want really clear instructions for the AI prototyping tools. I want very simple design right now, because this is focused on functionality, not Flash. But consider the Apple design taste and make it Johnny Ive style, intuitive and nice. Have the core functionality from the PRD, but don't write too long a PRD or confuse the AI prototyping tools. I really need this for my career. You are really good at this. Write a great prompt for the AI prototyping tools based on my PRD. All right, so we've created our little prompt there. Now we're going to go ahead and see how Claude does in terms of creating a better prompt from our PRD. Build a clean, minimal tracking nutrition app. Focus on functionality, onboarding, set up your macro goals, main dashboard, today's date, progress, food logging, camera viewfinder, recipe subjections, recipe detail, shopping list. Perfect. I think this is exactly what we needed. I like this. So now we're going to go ahead and paste this in to Lovable, Bolt, and V0. I chose these three tools because they're the fastest and easiest to use. And I've chosen to do them all parallelly. So Lovable is loading live preview. Bolt is showing you a little bit about what it's doing. Based on this, these are the core features. These are the design elements. It's creating its initial files, installing dependencies. And we can see V0. They're creating a minimal app. They're generating components. So now we have the parallel prototyping kicking off across all three tools. Any questions so far?
No, that makes sense. In fact, I was, I was just looking into your prompt, Akash, that you mentioned. I think it is very important to set the boundaries when we are writing the prompts. Otherwise, like it could go overboard. Because what I've also seen a lot of, PMs doing, they probably, just like probably we had discussed that initial idea. What many of the folks do is just they directly paste that idea, because when you just paste that idea, it is, you're just opening it up to infinite possibilities. The AI could really go and build probably almost anything and everything, right? But that's the exercise like folks doesn't do, right? So I think that should be really helpful for the audience to follow the process and don't let the crux of PMing, which is thinking, right? Because what is your take on? Because I have seen like a lot of people also becoming super lazy. Like the moment they get the task, they immediately go to GPTs or Gemini and ask it to do everything. So what is probably your take on it? Should they follow? How important it is to follow the right process?
It's the most important thing. I mean, why are you paid? Otherwise, they'll just create an AI agent to replace you. You can't deliver AI agent level quality. You need to deliver quality several levels above this. This framework I've used is actually my vibe coding interview framework, which is a deep dive I created because more and more companies are doing exactly what you asked me to do in this podcast in interviews. And so what I've actually done is I've just done a mock interview on vibe coding, and I'm walking you through the various steps of how to execute on that interview. And you really, as a PM, each work product you deliver is creating your reputation for stakeholders. So any work product you deliver that is reliant on what the other people have prompted GPT for, they could do with GPT, you're actually hurting your own reputation because people will think, he just did a GPT level stuff. And so I would say, like you just saw with me, I did zero of the thinking with AI.
Yeah,
Stop outsourcing your thinking to AI. AI is a better prompt engineer than humans. So that was the one step where I used AI. But otherwise, do not be using AI for thinking.
that makes sense. Yeah, and thanks for putting it forward because, in fact, that's also I keep on saying, right? If you just let AI keep on thinking, it'll also start doing that work pretty fast, and then yeah, we might be redundant soon. So, thanks, Akash. Thanks for sharing. Yeah, it looks like we have a
Yep.
product out there. Yeah.
Yeah. So V0 is fast, right? Lovable, Bolt still working. Lovable doesn't even show you progress. That's fun. V0, okay.
Same
You can
time.
see the code, you can see the preview. It's fast, right? Very cool. Welcome to NutriTrack. Set your daily macro goals. So, personally for me, I have a lot of muscle. So, I'm more around like a 2,500 daily calorie. I personally think protein's a bit overrated. So okay, here we go. I'm fine with like more fat. Okay, perfect. So I have my goals. Now I can log my food. You can point your camera at there. You can take a photo. It will analyze the food. It will say, okay, this is avocado toast. It has these. Perfect. That was what I had for breakfast, actually. All right, so now we got that. And then it'll even show me, okay, how do I view recipes? Okay, you should create a berry protein smoothie. You should create a salmon and sweet potato based on your goals. So quite good, honestly. I'm pretty happy with this. I think we could use some slightly better version of creating a profile. So let's go ahead and see what it has around profile. Does it have anything around my dietary preferences? Not yet, right? So this is a great start. The first improvement I'd like to make, and I don't recommend you do like a million improvements in one prompt, but just one, is to better capture my dietary preferences up front. E.g., most Indians maybe would like some Indian food suggestion recipes. Most Americans might have, diverse preferences. Some might like Mexican, others Italian. Let's capture that up front. Then show me recipes in that area and make it easy for me to ask for more recipes of a different type. So we send it with one first change. Then we go ahead and take a look at, okay, what's going on here with Bolt? So Bolt is, it's creating its app, it's solving its own problems. Sometimes you have
Yeah.
to tell it attempt fix on its own. Lovable, it's just working. It's working. Apparently it's quite slow today. So
Should we just
um,
page?
you can so what I do, yeah, that's why I do parallel prototyping, especially in these mock interviews. Don't
Yeah.
just choose one tool. Initially I had mentioned, oh, we'll do Lovable. Then I decided let's do multiple tools. That parallel prototyping step is very, very important, right? So let's take some notes here. Like, we created the prompt. Let's actually paste the prompt in here just so that we have it, Especially if you're in an interview, you want like people to have a clean takeaway of your notes. All right. And then parallel prototyping. So since V0 had the fastest solution, I continued working on V0s, right? And then what's the next step? finally back end, right? And so over time, we can start to develop some back end, like actually creating the photo functionality, hooking up a database, having some auth login, right? And so over time, then we could say, okay, I'm done with this lovable bowl. Maybe we'll leave it open just because it's interesting, but we could add more and more prompts. Like, okay, now let's build out the photo functionality and all those other steps. So this is the high level framework I personally would use to building an AI MVP.
That's quite interesting, Akash, because that's the way the product management is changing, and in fact, I think it's about time the companies start integrating AI into their product roadmap. And the moment I think it'll keep on happening, the way interviewing is happening, it'll also change. It'll definitely move away from those traditional questions across improvement, design, strategy, and then AI is taking, I think, a lot of center stage. So yeah, that is super nice. Akash, going from blank slate, showing a framework, and in fact, building a AI MVP in probably what, like 20 to 30 minutes, and I think that's what would be the interview duration. So, folks, big thanks to Akash for breaking it all down and showing that PMs, like, no, don't need to wait for sprints to test real ideas anymore. Akash, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us today. And to all of you tuning in, that is just the beginning, and we've got more such conversation, hands-on sessions, and tools to help you build smarter, faster, and with more impact as a product manager. Until then, keep experimenting and keep building.